read two texts to begin with. One is very short and the other is longer and more narrative. To Phil. Hi there. Hello. So, yeah, but hello. No, or rather, yes, still maybe, no, but, and yet. I mean, you see, how can I put it? But yes. It's that, for instance, they say, you're kidding. No, but yes, no, you're kidding. You must be joking, huh? Well, get out of here. That's life. What? You're pulling my leg. Get off it.
Yeah. But yes already. Oh, finally. Go. Good. And yet, okay, what? That? So, no, that's true. Zero. Basta. Spanish translation to follow. Sentences on this foreigner. To speak a language sometimes excludes the language one had spoken this grandmother who had been Spanish, who perhaps still was, didn't say a word. She'd say that she'd understood nothing of such and such a film, but that the scenery and the clothes were fabulous. She spoke a lot, keeping quiet. She didn't speak Spanish, her foreign language, because she was French. She was a seamstress. Her life went by altering and refitting haute couture dresses, cloth, scissors, pins, everywhere, stuck in the cracks between the tiles, up there in her workroom, next to the boys' room, along the street with its passing cars, its cars that sometimes embedded themselves in the wall.
She spoke the language of others as if it were her own language and couldn't stand foreigners, refusing them the right even to be foreign in the land that was hers and to which, however, she didn't really belong. We, at least, we were not we to whom she refused her language.
She was a passionate lover of television. The foreign films from Germany, Derek, from France, from the United States, where she never went. She had a fiction involving dollars. My grandson is paid in dollars, and off she went, traveling.
The language I speak is called English. It has often eroded the language I speak, French, without my speaking Spanish. The language that I spoke was languages, to know how to say them without understanding them, ventriloquent songs, counterfeit accents, to learn languages and understand them as well. The language of China, the language of Spain, the language of Argentina, the language of Mexico, the language of Panama, the language of Latin, the language of Greece, the language of Italy, the language of England, the language of Scotland, the language of Germany, the language of Canada, the language of Quebec, the language of Ontario, the language of Geneva, the language of Brussels, the language of New York, the language of Brooklyn, the language of the north of England, the language of the southern United States, the language of advertising, the language of the university, the language of my parents, the language of the south of France, the language of the north of Seine, none.
She cut into the material, liked and didn't like doing it, liked her rich clients and didn't like their stinginess, thinking that they were trying to wear fakes when maybe they could have worn the real thing. She was always trying to find out if the name of my other grandmother, which is to say the name of my grandfather, was Jewish, and if that was the reason that they had emigrated from Alsace to the Alps and then to end up in this Mediterranean city during the debacle. She tried to find out, always got the same response, but kept on asking the question and not being able to pronounce the other family's name. My grandmother kept quiet too, clearly thinking that there was nothing to say, that it was a French story, a Spanish story too, a story from Eastern Europe that would play out again without anyone's having to tell it. The silence of language, how much one can say nothing.
They had both learned languages in order to not make up the one or ones that they spoke but didn't say. Or perhaps at the end of their lives, the other grandmother, in the few minutes that she had left to live, sensing that there was nothing left to do, asked if someone couldn't go get her a lemon sorbet. Just a few words about the book. The book, as you said, Ghazal, was published as Récupéré, and Cole and I adapted it to its new context. It was published in 2015, so we readapted to its new context. And for example, the title is Récupéré, it then became Recover, and suddenly it became Recovery. And yeah, and I want to thank a special person who will know who he is for, this great title, Recovery. It's made of tracks. So the book is made of tracks as, in skiing. So you go skiing on your tracks, and also there are off tracks. You could ski off track. And so as in skiing, as in mixing, like DJing, and also as in walking, you walk on tracks. And so the reader is free to mix those tracks, to pick, bits and pieces from the book and read as they like. It's an attempt or a desire to actually try to write what Marcel Mauss calls the diverse. And Cole will read a short quotation that is the epigraph of the book on the diverse. It's also a way to try to be together and alone at the same time as a politics of gaiety or of gayness, as you wish, and a politics of lightness. And I think I'll stop here. I'll just finish by saying that Cole and I will read from bits and pieces in the book. So from texts taken from all three tracks. And the track that we are taking is one that has to do with screens. So in the book, there are texts that deal with screens. So of course, we're online. We could not resist the pleasure of, reading about screens. I don't know whether, Cole, you want to add anything to that?
Just thank you. I'm going to underscore the thank you to Paminar Press and to Ghazal for all the great work and for the beautiful book that resulted in it. So thanks so much for that. And for putting this together. It was really nice to be here today. And I'll just leap right into that Marcel Mauss quote. Advances in the natural sciences are always made in the direction of the concrete and in the direction of the unknown. And the unknown is always found at the frontiers of the sciences, where professors are, as Gert put it, always fighting among themselves. I say fighting, though Gert wasn't quite so polite. It's generally in these contested spaces that the urgent problems lie. Furthermore, these wildernesses are marked. In the natural sciences, such as they exist, we often find misleading labels. There's always a moment when a science of solid facts, not yet reduced to concepts, not even organically organized, is stamped with the hallmark of ignorance, diverse. That's where the work is to be done. Marcel Mauss.
Track B.
You're doing of smoke.
An exhibition investigating screens. So yeah, we're doing Of Smoke with the image that should go with it. Of smoke. If I write a phrase that everyone can understand, such as smoke screen, if I read it, if I say it, do I also practice it? Do I see the screen of smoke there, or does it remain figurative language?
White. Globe 1. A white of constellations that we have to imagine as scintillating, and blue, the rule of the spheres, certainly goes back further than any cosmological map. This time round, drawn by someone else, that constitutes the portrait of a century, painting also from a certain point of view, cut up in squares or here in time zones. The celestial globe represents the universe with, by convention and to facilitate comprehension, the earth at its center. The decor represents the sky as it was at the very moment of Louis XIV's birth, 5 September 1638. All the known stars are shown in the size corresponding to their magnitude.
Globe 2. The other white, which encodes the void, or rather the absence of representation, or rather the representation of the absence of representation on the coast of other representations. Portrait of a century through the map of its kings and the lands that they named or constituted by superimposing a name on an expanse of land, represented as such, so that you see it on the map, so that you envision it in our line, in a glance, so however, always a partitive of Louis, the part of the Virgin Queen, the part that establishes Louisiana, Virginia, Pennsylvania of the United States, this North America, here inscribed in the name of the Indies before a name was found in the monastery, was imposed and came to cover the two almost symmetrical parts to no longer mean that the nation that it is today, the nation with at that moment more screens than anywhere else, it's the name itself, another name that is inscribed by its white in the library, the map of a writing that would be a translation.
Flat. A sheet hung out, white, a line held, gray, transparent, behind.
Transparent, gray, held, a line, white, hung out, a sheet, or folded. Giant projection.
Open the screen. To be seen in secret is to be in the position of this drawing. On the screen, astonished by this landscape, this figure, lost. There, a painter painting himself, unlanding, a landscape in an aggregate, who positions himself to say who he is, but with his back turned, almost invisible in the folds, a rock, echo to the end of the myth, or he surpasses Narcissus. Next screen, please. Perfect. It's Claude Gelée. Claude Gelée, known as Lorraine, or simply as Claude, floating the figure by the multiple folds of his name, here in the rock, an echo. It's not Claude, is it even a painter, a draftsman, a writer at his page? To unfold or to be in the situation of the painter, seeing himself, painting himself, already forgetting that he has 3 different names, that he's missing from his own landscape of painting. To unfold or be exposed and disappear into the landscape. If you listen, see Echo Narcissus, the rock, a series of diminished walls. Let's listen, see what is said. Here on this side of the table, from the other side of the table, which here is the Claude. The table serpentine, the text and pages, the situation repainted, recovered with a new color by the visitor, this editor. A mirror of water, a screen in which Claude never really sees himself, you and me either. And let's refold ourselves. To unfold is also to overflow the fold. So let's unfold ourselves. Hurry up. In the screen of the page, backlit The painting has disappeared and it's actually there. It's not a painting, it's a drawing. The digital image has been folded, has been faulted, which has modified itself in its copy, landscape, echo of the sayings, uttered, imagined as such truncated, traded, tricked, blushed, assumed to be something entirely else, an object for poetry, for prose, for writing a few syllables at least, late, in haste. Next slide. End of the exhibition.
And now we move to the next slide. Yes. If screens traduction. If I say that I have a screen memory, am I misusing a phrase, or is my capacity to remember hazy?
If I hear no worries, should I not worry, or am I to think that I should try harder?
If my friend tells me that it's my projection, does he imply that it's a private screening, or that I am a cinema complete with screen, film print, and optomechanical device for displaying motion picture film?
If I write OMG and that I'm an atheist, does it mean that I don't know what God I worship, or that I like natural crops and anagrams?
When the sentence says que la police ait terminé les ouvriers, does it mean what it says, or is it just a mistranslation?
When gesta is the origin of the story, is gesti the origin of stora, or rather gest the origin of store? Quand geste est l'origine de story, est-ce que gesti est l'origine de store, ou bien geste l'origine de store?
If the breast of an academic nude is covered by a black rectangular screen, is Facebook gesturing toward Malevich and conceptualism, or are we not all scopophilic anyway?
If I mean to say screen memory and I forget to say screen, which is more important, the screen, the memory, or the screen memory?
If I say Eden the same, item the same, should I understand twice different or both?
Since un store means a blind, is a screen in store when you don't see it?
If he hears je vais à la guerre, when I say je vais à la gare, does it mean that I speak daggers, that my language ravels, or that I am driving a car with Anna Karina in a Godard movie?
If I'm saying in French that I'm going to retouch the screen, am I speaking of changing the typeface of my lines, or am I trying to eroticize long distance calls?
If I speak about screens because I am a skeptic, am I inventing a relation between skeptikos, to examine, and specere, to look?
If I see you lying next to me in the grass when we were boys of 8, is it a screen memory or a recollection?
And if I say future, do I take it as the opposite of pasture? Thank you. And if we have time, I don't know, Ghazal, how we're doing for time. Yeah, if we have time, because there's been a lot of fire in the chat, I will read the last texts of the book called Fires. Fires. If you are like fire, and that fire spreads almost everywhere, what sort of a sign is this? Is it a revolt, exaltation, a language, or all of the above? Does fire consume itself in this devastation? Fire. And I should say that those texts were written in French and then self-translated. So any broken, lines are not calls, they're mine. Fire. Fire the beaches, marine life. Keep your distance from marine life, wildlife. Stay away, your kayak close to the coast or in town, canoeing on swimming pools, lying nude, draping. Fire dormition zones to paddle. Let them migrate or leave them alone or camouflaged. Leave them to their life of wool, their plumage dancing far off. Fire. Arms in one's feet in doubt, all in flamingo. Fire, red future to isolate, that is outing in a boat, precautions, torn, slip, flotilla effects, relation of coot to rock moraine. Impacts, fire, outside, burn your yacht language animals, shoot up stocks of dolphins in Calabria, incendiary leaps of maritime groupings, bursting mouth, lemon finback, pomegranate, lying bare, a sea passage. Fire hose, language, it fired up, the whole word of fire. Fire, fire, don't let them fire you, politics of fire, or biodiversity reduced to projectile things, antelope. Yacht, burn your language, you. Fire, fire hose, fire, bloody nature of power, rocks to stones, for each thing well alive, embraced, ablazed. Start from strength, metal rain over him, fire, thrown from position, kneeling, ready to.